Alrighty, so I guess fill me in on Astro and then things that are going on.
So we got a 100-foot leash, so we've been going over to Grand Park.
Oh, yeah.
Working on that.
Sure.
Slowly but surely making progress on that.
Okay.
Really, the only problem I'd say we've run into recently is like the past couple weeks, he's been more anxious over noises like outside.
Oh, sure. Okay.
So yeah,
Is it at night or is it any time of day?
more so at night.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah,
what kind of
so-
noises?
A lot of car noises, mostly. And
Really?
Like,
Interesting.
yeah, there's a lot of loud cars that go up and down Michigan Ave.
Sure. Is this in the home or out on the outside?
Outside, really.
Okay.
He's fine inside.
During the day, what's his behavior like with those noises? Typically.
Like when we're outside.
Yeah.
I mean, he still doesn't love them, but he seems more bothered by them at night.
Okay. When you walk with him, do you stay like within the park area, or do you go up and down like Michigan and stuff?
We normally stay on the outside of the park, right on Michigan.
Okay, so you are just like tackling that like kind of noise
Right.
anxiety or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. Are your longer walks during the day?
Yeah, we're starting to. We tried to do it more so like later when it was cooler, but noticed he's not loving it, so we trying to do it more.
Okay.
Right when I get home from work.
So when it comes to like the nighttime stuff, not uncommon. It would be the same thing as like anything else, like just targeting it. So if you do like a 10-minute walk, or typically like your longer walk, like right when you come home, and then like a longer one in the morning, and then the last one is just like a quick run out to go potty type of deal. Then I would flip it and make that night, but that's the hardest walk. Then I make that the longest walk. You know, so you're like targeting it essentially, not just so it's also the noises, but just the time of day, and see how he does. Same kind of thing, you know, I would target the busiest street, which would be either Michigan or Lake Shore if you're on the east side of the park or whatever. And then actually you can even go underneath that like little viaduct or whatever, I think, and you can walk up on the shoreline, which is right by the Lake Shore, and then you can cross over, and then you're back towards like where Michigan is in south of Michigan, so you kind of do both of it. Yeah. Okay. And see how he does.
Okay.
Anything else you've noticed about him in the area and stuff with the noises and just like things in general?
Just really anything that's louder than just like the background noise.
Sure.
Whether it be like construction or a skateboarder or like a runner stomping up from behind.
Gotcha. He's just super.
It's really anything. Yeah.
Okay. What's his number been?
We still working kind of around 80.
80. Okay. So like, let's say you're walking with him, a runner's coming behind. You start to see his cues. I'm assuming he starts to look behind and
Yeah.
kind of get worked up. What's your response to that? Like, how do you handle it?
Normally just put.
Okay.
Tap 'em.
Okay.
That,
And then, so
right.
like you're walking, right? You tap him, and then
He
what's his
normally-
response?
Normally shoots his head forward.
Okay. Do you feel like you have to do that a couple of times before you finally just holds it? Or is it like you tap once, he lets go, and then the one runner runs tap?
Give or take, depending.
Okay.
I would say it's really one
So-
or the other.
What I would do here, it's enough, it seems like enough to stop it, either momentarily or within that moment, but then the brain resets, and then the next time it happens, like it's going to happen again, and then it happens again, right?
Yeah.
So it's really kind of like you're doing maintenance. Like momentary maintenance to keep him in check, but not enough that you learn to self-regulate. So I would experiment with my number. So like, let's say when it comes to runners, you know, let's say you go to 95 or whatever, after a few experiments of like what's going to work, you're doing the same thing that you are doing, you're tapping to correct them, but then maybe you notice like, yeah, when I went to 95, he's not worried about the runners anymore. Now we're getting a bunch of runners running past at all different times of day, even out of nowhere, he's not bothered by it. So you found the number that is essentially got him to override that nervous response. Right now it's just enough to stop it, but not enough for him to retain it. So if the next time he thinks to himself, oh, there's a runner coming, I should just keep it in check and not worry about it. Okay? And I would do the same thing for anything that's triggering him, whether it be runners, cars, honks, loud noises, whatever it is.
Okay.
And you might have to you're gonna probably get. If he's doing great on the 80 and stuff, you have a couple of choices. You can either just gradually raise that number and make that the number, or you just have to get used to like dialing up and back down again. Just kind of getting a feel for if you're going to 95, like if you have to, going up to that range very quickly to cap and get under control, and then dipping down afterwards. Okay, so when it comes to nervous or anxious responses, the more he does it, the more it becomes a habit. Okay. So it's kind of like someone who smokes a cigarette every time they get stressed out. So then eventually it goes from like a cigarette a day to like 2 cigarettes a day to like 5 cigarettes. Then it's like every time something is bothering them, I gotta have a cigarette, right? Because they're reinforcing that response. So same thing for the dogs. You know, every time he gets anxious or nervous and he has to look around to look, he's thinking he has to always look around to look. So then you're countering him because he's not going to self-regulate. Like you can't tell him like, look, bud, it's okay. You don't need to look at that. It's just the runner, right? If you naturally could. So he just starts to think like every time I think about being or giving into this nervous response, you know, 95 kicks in. I don't like it. The next time it happens, he should ideally keep himself in check. It happens. You might see some like build up of stress, and then finally release like, oh, like, that wasn't that bad. Okay. Definitely a more like higher anxious personality type. But I would definitely, if possible, target the night times. Okay. That's going to be the hardest, and then play with the range in terms of when you're stopping them for these responses to see what ends up sinking in and like getting you more so of a gap between having to address them. You know, questions about that?
Not really. One thing does come to mind. Like I took him for a walk this morning, like 10:30, right up and down, and he was fine. A couple loud noises, but he didn't really seem bothered at all. It was a great heel position, walking away and to or towards the apartment. And then sometimes when we go out at night, like even just like if a motorcycle rides by or something, like that'll startle him. And then like he'll just be like tail tucked and kind of lagging behind. How do I get him? Because like it's sometimes we're like lagging behind where it's just like I'll like be hitting the lead.
Sure.
It's just like definitely too far.
What's the highest you've gone?
I mean it's gone up all the way.
It's gone up all the way. In that kind of setting?
Oh, not just walking like that.
Okay.
Probably like 100.
Okay.
I'd say.
So, what's happening is he gets stressed out and he goes more so into it's not a flight state, but it's kind of avoidance. You know, just like not wanting to move forward. And I would override him with power. So like. So you're almost always going opposite to the dog. So like let's say I get a dog that moves around a lot when it's stressed, then I make it sit still. If I get a dog that locks up and sits still when they get stressed, then I make it move around. If a dog moves fast, I move slow. If they move slow, I move fast, right? So since he's lagging, you can't do your turnaround, right? Because he's not ahead of you.
Yeah.
So I would pick up my pace. Okay. Nothing like exponentially, like, you know, just a decent amount, because you're trying to create a gap between you and Astro that Astro has to close. Okay, so you might have some tension because you're going faster than him and he's not wanting to move, and then it's 80, 85, 90, 95, 100, 105, 110, 115. I'm coming. Boom. Okay. Now you might find that once you pull him out of that state, the tail will untuck. Because when it tucks in, he's saying, I'm really unsure. I don't feel safe walking in this environment. But once you essentially make the heel more concerning, he's like, well, shit, like this 105 or 115, whatever it is, like that's real, right? Like this thought of like the loud noise, that's nothing. I felt this. Is a lot of times you'll see that tail come out because now he's not worried about the potential threat. He's worried about this exercise. And now he's got to focus on this exercise, okay? Anytime you see him block up, give resistance, even spook about stuff, like the other day, I was walking in Logan's Court with my dogs, and my dog hates, my pit hates fireworks. and they didn't have the e-collar up. It was just a walk, and literally, like, I'm right here, and someone with that tree is like set up a fireworks just randomly. So then I'm like, shit, right? Like, so that, of course. So she kept wanting to run away, right? She's like, I'm scared or whatever, and it sucked. And I'm just like, I wish I had my e-collar because I could just override this. She wouldn't be happy still. She'd still be like worried, but she'd be more in check. And I wouldn't have to use so much physical to kind of control her because mentally I can engage her with the remote. Okay? It's essentially overriding, it's making them more cautious or fearful of the remote to override the fear of the environment. Okay? Makes sense. So that foundation, like heel exercise, helps push a lot of dogs through like these moments. It's just using that power to override and make them go like, okay, this is really important. I gotta put this fear aside and really focus on this. Okay? So I'd experiment with that and then definitely just target those late nights. Okay?
Okay, yeah.
Other questions? You never covered the stay, right?
Nope, we haven't got there.
Okay,
so just the first 2 weeks were heel, and then the last 2 were recall.
Okay.
And then you wanted
that down the anxiety stuff in the car.
Yeah.
How's that been?
I mean, he wasn't stationary by any means in the car today and was crying a little bit, but he hasn't been in since the last time we came here. So,
sure.
I mean, all in all, I don't think it was too bad for given that situation.
Is he scared about going in the car at all? Or does he hop right in?
Oh, he hops right in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does he barge in or does he just like calmly just like hops in?
He has a hard time doing many things calm.
Okay.
He's just a high energy guy, but yeah, he just kind of jumps in. I wouldn't say it's like anything crazy. But
Gotcha.
hey, would it be concerning if he did like jump in quick?
Well, because what happens is every time he does, like that's what we would categorize as impulsive behavior. Every time he does something, it's fast. Okay, so like I had a pit that I worked with a couple years ago, and at the veterinarian, it was just a shit show. So I asked the owner, I'm like, well, walk me through the process of like from your house to the vet, right? It was like the back door to the garage door to the car door to the front door of the vet to the vet's office, right? And then the first part was all like just like he knew the whole pattern of back door, garage door, car door. So he would be charging through everything. So what we did was we put thresholds on everything, so it wasn't you could just an impulsive forge through. So by the time he got to the veterinarian, he was calm because like it's like when they leave the back door, he's like back door, garage door, car door, right, car ride, and then like he hops out, and it's just energy is stacking. So when you start to like tap it, and you go, no, you can't just hop in there. And you have to wait for me to cue you. And the same thing for the coming out the car. Because he would like just launch out the car and he was like ready for it. We put rules for all these things. And then at the veterinarian, he was fine. Okay. So it's not just like doing things, but how we do things that matter.
Yeah.
But the only time he's in the car is from here to your place in here, right?
Basically, yeah.
Okay. So what we'll do is we'll keep an eye on that. What we'll work on today, which actually works out, we'll come down to the sidewalk. We're going to work on the stay. And that's something that you can start incorporating with the heel and the recall stuff. Because now that you already worked with the long line, it's very easily, once I teach heel, recall, and stay, I'll tell the owner start practicing like this trifecta of commands as we start teaching the other stuff. So like next week we'll cover like the down command, the place command, the sit command, and then the second half of the program, because we're doing 12, right?
Yep.
Yeah, the second half of the program, we start transitioning everything towards off-leash.
Gotcha.
So the first 6 classes, like we teach everything to remote collar, and then we teach the recall, you start that process, and then we teach a few other things, and the second half is we start putting everything to the long leash to start building to that off-leash level. Okay? We're going to, if you want to grab your stuff, we're just going to come down here.
Hold on. He does have some stay groundwork.
Okay. I'll have you start show me what you have you start off with showing me
Yeah, that's them.
Oh, that's them, right?
I wave.
That's another client of ours.
Oh, right there?
Yeah.
That's funny.
I'll have you show me how you incorporate, how you use it, and then we'll go from there, okay? Whenever you're ready.
Oh, and then I did have one random question.
Sure.
I noticed it was like, it's from his prong right there.
Sure.
Left like a scab or something.
Yeah.
Do you think I just had it too tight one time?
Maybe, and or if there was constant tension, you know, from like pulling or whatever, that can happen. Or even just like rubbing. If you ever got, if there was rain and was wearing it, sometimes it'll like chafe. It'll heal up, scab will fall off, fur will go back.
I just wanted to make sure it wasn't like zapping him too much or something.
So with the e-collar, if he wears it extensively, if you don't rotate it,
yeah, I tried to.
Every 2 hours, it'll develop pressure sores. Okay, so it's not from the stem; it's from the two probes in the same spot for a really long time. That does happen. Okay, so if he's wearing it longer than 2 hours, you rotate it.
For sure.
You also, like if you never, because this is waterproof, if you just make sure your tabs are closed with the charging port goes. If he ever gets wet, I do encourage people to rotate it a little bit more frequently, hour and a half, because then body heat and then the box being there tends to, especially with pitties, can create some irritation.
Okay.
Otherwise, just avoid the area. The scab again will fall off, heal up, fur goes back, but it's not from stem. It's from two probes being in the same spot for a long time. Or if you always use the same spot, that can happen as well. So I always encourage alternating sides whenever you use it. Okay.
And then how waterproof is it? Like just, cause I know it says that, but I took him to the, I'm assuming the answer is no, but I took him to the dog beach.
Yeah.
And like, I didn't have it on, but I was like, yeah, definitely could have used it.
Yeah,
like,
no, it's waterproof.
Can he jump in the lake with
Yeah,
it?
go swimming and stuff like that.
Oh wow.
You just can't go like, scuba diving.
Yeah.
But yeah, you go swimming. Just make sure that charging port is closed.
Okay.
I only had one client that told me that she forgot to close the tab, and then what happened is it started to misfire, even though she wasn't pressing the button. So she just took it off, let it dry, and then after it dried up, it was perfectly fine.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, and that's like one client in
A lot of
10 years of using e-collar.
Cool.
But yeah, rain, stuff like that. Just be sure that if you're at the dog beach getting wet, I would rotate it more often than not.
Okay.
Okay.
For sure. Astro deal.
Good pivot.
Do you want me to show you like this?
Yeah, show me your stay and I'll see what happens.
Sit stay. Basically what we did with our old trainers, I would just like have them sit stay and just kind of just walk around and try and cause some distraction for him.
Okay.
The goal was to get him to a 3-minute sit stay,
Okay.
but I think the longest he held it with her was probably close. He didn't get to 3, but I think he got to 2.
Okay. So
Sit stay.
when we do the stay, for sits, I don't care about duration. Most dogs, it gets uncomfortable, they'll sit for longer than 5 minutes or so. They tend to like start to lay down. Duration. So if I know, like, let's say you come to a stop, you're gonna have like a conversation with a friend or whatever, and you know it's gonna be a long conversation, I would just already down him, release him, or give some other kind of duration command, like place, if like you had like a mat or whatever. But if I come to a stop and he auto sits, I almost always will just down the dog, because at some point they'll get lazy and just want to lay down themselves. So for me, sit stay is like momentary, and we're gonna just make a few tweaks here. Okay, so when I use stay, it's much different than other trainers. The way I use the stay is if the dog is already in position. So like right now, Astro is in a sitting position, but technically, well, you did say sit stay, but prior to the sit stay, he's not in a sit. What was the command you're in prior to the sit stay?
Heel,
right?
Yeah.
And
I know what you're talking about.
so it's an auto sit, right? So it's not a sit, it's an auto sit. So if you move, Astro's inclination is going to be to move with you. So here, I would say stay, because human logic says I can't say sit. He's already doing it. He's already doing it. So this is where I would say stay, and now you're differentiating, I'm going to move, but you're not going to move. Okay? So what we're going to do here is I'm going to have you go into those heels, and you're going to come into a stop, right? He's going to auto sit. You're going to wait a moment. I take the hand closest to Astro, so in this case it'll be the left. And just real quick, stay. Don't worry about like if he sees it or not, just quick stay.
Okay.
And you're going to pivot out with your right leg, like this, to face Astro, okay? And then just like that. And then as you're pivoting out, so like right there, I don't know if you saw him flinch. As you're pivoting out, if Astro gets up, you're gonna pull up and tap on the collar like you would correct the sit, right?
Okay.
Then continue, wait a moment, and then you're gonna step back to a side and then go into a heel.
Gotcha.
Okay? So we're making it a little bit more nuanced because once we get to long leash and off leash stuff, it's gonna be a lot of body language. Okay, we're just getting that body language like in his mind and also in your muscle memory. Okay?
Definitely.
So when you go from that heel to that stay, don't worry about sit stay anymore. Just stay and then the pivot out. Wait a moment. And kick back in, heel, and repeat.
Gotcha.
Okay? Whenever you're ready.
Heel.
Good.
Stay.
Good. Back to the side. Good. Heel. Four
Heel.
more. Good pivot.
Stay.
Good.
Heel.
Good. Three more. Good.
Stay. You almost moved.
Good. Two more.
Heel. Stay.
Good. Last one.
Heel. Stay.
Very good. Excellent. So now we're gonna do the same thing, but once you pivot out and you wait that moment, then you're gonna start walking like a half circle around
The front of them.
the front of them, and then we're gonna gradually expand it to a full circle. So we're doing 5, 5, and 5. We're gradually building it up. So what we're doing here is in advanced training, left leg means heel, right leg means you don't move. So that's the purpose of swinging out with the right leg. Eventually we're gonna build to stay, boom, and you just move forward like that. And you wouldn't pivot out in front of them because that's not
Normal.
yeah. Okay. Good.
Heel. Stay.
Good. 4 more just like that.
Heel. Stay.
Right, good. Up tap, there you go. You got it, good job.
Stay. Heel. Would it help if I had 2 hands on the leash, like when I was walking around?
He's doing like when he did the stay earlier. I could see he's got a good concept of it. So having that left hand on there would help, like when he got up right away, kicking in. But when you tapped, he did stop and put the butt down, which is what I'm looking for.
Okay.
So you can keep it how you have been, and we'll adjust it.
Stay.
Good. Got 2 more.
Heel. Been a long day.
Yeah.
So we got a hot one for you.
Yeah, today it was, even with the shade, it was pretty warm.
I'm surprised how much it's cooled down by now. Stay.
That's why I like this part because there's plenty of shade. Up, tap, tap, tap.
Yeah, it is nice.
There's another part that we go to for like we get clients that come really far. So there's a park by the expressway, but there's like no shade there, so you're like,
Just baking in the sun. Do you have like a set that you have? You train at that one?
yeah, like Thursdays we're over there.
Heel.
Your turn. Good.
Stay.
Very good. So this next batch, same thing, but now you're gonna do the full circle. Now, super common thing with the full circle is like the dogs they'll keep sitting, but they'll like swivel.
When you get behind them.
Right? So if that happens, I ignore it because that will actually fix itself. We only correct if he lays down or stands from this position. But if he keeps that butt down and swivels, I just ignore it. It should go away within a few, sessions of practice.
Okay. Do you still want me doing like the
Yes.
and then swivel out?
Correct.
Okay. Heel. Stay.
Good.
Ahoy. Heel. Stay. Heel. Heel.
Stay. It's alright.
Stay. Happens.
Up, tap. There you go. Good. Good.
That's my fault. I'm not gonna get mad at you for that.
I like that he did respond to the taps. Tap, 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 tap. There you go. Good. And keep walking around. Yep. Good. Couple more.
Heel. Stay. Heel.
Turn. Scooter.
No, you're fine. My bad. Stop. Stay.
Yeah, good.
Stay.
Very good.
If he's still getting ahead of me, like when we're walking down Michigan Ave or something, it's still just pivot away.
And then it's the number.
Yeah, okay.
How often do you find yourself having to do that?
Not too bad, honestly. It's just like more so when he's walking home or when he's
Oh, sure, yeah.
more anxious.
More
but
anxious?
Yeah.
So when it comes to like, let's say, like with my pit, that firework, once it goes into flight mode, like it's not going to shut down until we're back home, right? So you're going to have to like give and take, you know. So it's like, yeah, you get him to adhere to the command, but expect to see some like bucking back and forth because his brain is just like, I got to get home, I got to get home.
Yeah.
Like, it's super hard to try to override that. But if it's just like, you know, like stuff like this, we should be able to get over because it's a constant. You know, whereas a random firework is different unless you have a setting where there's just fires going off for like an hour non-stop, right? So, just be cognizant of that. So if you notice like, yeah, something happens and he's just super spooked, I'd most likely opt to like do my best to keep him in line, but just start heading home. Because more than likely you're not going to override that flight response. He's just done. And then it's unpleasant for everybody. But definitely stuff that you feel like, no, like this is realistic, this is all the time, this is not going to go away, then we have to keep the exposure.
For sure.
Okay?
Makes sense.
Yeah, so anytime that you're struggling with resistance, with anxiety, with stress levels and stuff like that, it's really just making the act of what we're doing more stressful than the environment that he's in. Okay? Other questions? So all this looked good. What I liked about those times that he didn't make the mistakes is when you started tapping him, his response wasn't just to run to you. It actually stopped him and it got him to put the butt down. That's why we do that up with the leash tension. Is because for other dogs, you know, if they don't have a baseline, they'll try to run to the owner because they've done 2 weeks of heel or 2 weeks of recall. So the remote means a lot of return to the handler. And here he was able to stop himself and just put his butt down, so that was fine. Okay, because once we start to get to a bigger distance with the long leash, if he's 20 feet away and he starts to move towards you, tap. We're not wanting to return. We want him to actually put his butt back down. And this is the baseline for it. So if you find, so for instance, with practicing with this, when we get anxious, nervous type personalities, one thing that I like to do, if he has this issue, is let's say like I have a client like literally a few blocks from here. Her dog doesn't like the traffic, okay? Because she's from like a small suburb, so dogs are like really anxious and nervous. Okay. But she's gotten a lot better, and she was talking about like the busier energy. So what I had her do was at the corners of the lights, like here, just do a stay and move away and be walking around, because with all the motion going on, the dog's response is to go back to mom for a sense of security. So by having her be away from her and hold that position, it was kind of testing that nervousness, anxiety, to get the dog to hold with everything, hold with all the stressors going on. So like, you know, down in the south, if there's an area where like, oh yeah, it's super high traffic, using that to your advantage, see if that's something that does affect Astro, and if it is, I'd make that a point of practice, okay? Anytime you see something with him, kind of flag it and just think like, can I use this to better him or to help him better handle the situation? Whereas most people tend to avoid. When you have this tool, we have these, you know, the right methodology, I start just tackling that stuff right away. Okay? Questions about that? So what we're gonna do another 5, but now what we're gonna add in is you'll do the stay, you'll do the walk around, one direction, then the other direction. Come in, add a boy, good boy Astro, but he's still under command. Then once you're done, you're gonna step away again. Because you've praised him, you we're gonna anticipate, right? So I would preemptively have my leash ready, so you can correct it here, because we are gonna. And I'm gonna have, when you come in, like put energy, what you would normally do, and then step away, because you're trying to break his attention. So for most dogs, they're thinking like, oh, I must be done now. And it's like, nope, you're still in command, and you step away so he retains that. Okay?
Makes sense.
Whenever you're ready.
I'm done.
Deal. Do you want me doing 2 full circles around him?
Yeah, one way, then one the other way.
Stay.
Good. Good.
Oh boy.
Yep. Yep. And praise, good. And step away. Good. Excellent. And 4 more.
I'm just gonna walk around and see if we can walk by this.
Sure.
Deal. Never mind. Yeah. That's fine. Makes it easy. Stay.
Good.
Having fun?
Having fun? Yeah. Right. Good. I can see on that
kind of
first one.
teased him with my left leg
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah.
Deal.
Good.
How long have they been out here today? Which has been?
The other one, like 2-3 hours, I think.
Oh, there's a couple of them?
Yeah, this first one that just came here was like just before you.
Nice. Deal. Or stay. Stay.
Good boy, Astro. Good boy.
Boy.
Good. How many was that? 3?
I think so.
Yeah. 2 more.
Deal. Stay.
Boy, you're doing so good.
Good.
Did you laugh fun?
Deal. I'm just gonna walk by them. Sure. Or try. Stay.
Oh, thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
I know. Love that. Deal.
We'll bring them up here. All right. So, when it comes to practicing this, like for me, stays at the least useful command. Because it usually say like, the heel, like call implied, recall, same thing for stay on the body implied. When I say down, sit, or place, stays implied. So the only time I use this is when the dog's are in position. So here, it was the heel, right?
Okay.
But like, let's say Astro were to be like laying on the couch, and you decided like, I need you to not move from that spot. That's where you would say stay. So then it becomes like a down command. So if he's already sitting, but he sat on his own, I'm like, oh, I need you to not move, stay. Okay, that's how I apply it.
So when you teach sit and down, it's basically sit down until I tell you to do something else.
Yeah.
Okay.
Same thing with place command, go to this bed and stay there until I release you. Okay. Cool. So the stay's implied. So once we, so like next class we'll be going over either place command or down command, and then like the sit, and then after that we can start transitioning everything to long leash.
Place one's going to be very helpful.
So which one? The place one?
Yeah.
It's super easy.
Just for when people come over.
Sure.
He's all of those people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Not in a bad way.
Yeah, he's just really excited. Sure. So when it comes to practicing the stay, what I usually recommend for my clients is like, let's say you're on the walk with Astro, you come to a red light, stay, practice there, after you poop, up past the sit 'em, stay, pick up the poop, back to the side, heel, come to a trash can, stay, walk away, throw it away, come back, heel. Like that's the practical applications of it.
Yeah.
A lot of people will use stay as like a, when they're leaving the house, like if they stay, the dog doesn't walk out the door. That's more of like momentary relief. Stay there until I release you.
Yeah.
Right? So just make sure we have those two differentiations. But then if you're using stay as a momentary, now you're creating some confusion. Because sometimes you can leave or get up without the release. And other times you have to wait. So that's the one thing I can point out to people is that this happens time to time. Questions about this so far?
I do have one general question. So I think some of the confusion might come from, or him think we might be
Yep. What's your number?
85.
Go a little bit more. Yep.
Sit. Stay.
Right. Good. So look at Astro here. Yep. What's your number?
94.
Okay.
I just turned it on.
Yep. We're gonna watch a moment. Yep. Right there.
There we go.
Okay. Good. So before you're,
I was like, just pull your dog out of there.
You think that so earlier?
Yeah.
We had a dog, I know, we had a German Shepherd with a muzzle on, right there. And then somebody comes up like, can we say hi? And I said, no. And they kept going. I'm like, what part of a dog with a muzzle makes you think that you want to bring your dog close?
Yeah.
That's the clear gift. Like the dog was fine. But it was like, if I see someone with a muzzle, I used to give them space because
they probably have it on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So here, now as much of like a jackass movie as it was, we just learned something. So, a couple of things here, because you went into sit stay. Okay, that's obedience mode. You just go into remote and amplifying it until you make Astro retreat.
Gotcha.
Okay. So when you get any forward type motion, you keep bumping him. What was your ending number?
I got him twice when he was just sitting at 95.
That was the highest you went?
Yeah.
Okay. So on that 95, I don't know if you noticed, but he did like a movement away and like kind of relaxed a bit.
What you're talking about.
That's the movement back. Okay. So when you go into sit stay, physically Astro's in a sit stay, mentally he's in a lunging state, right? And what you're trying to do here is you're saying that behavior is inappropriate. You're going to cut the crap, and then you're making them give up that mindset, by the movement away. Okay, we have another dog approaching here. Just so you know. You're at what number now?
Turn it back up.
Okay, yep.
Oh, he needs more.
Yeah. So we're gonna. Hi, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. So, even this tap, 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 tap. There we tap, tap. There we go. See how he goes on his hip there?
Yeah.
And also, see how his mouth is now open? So when she showed up, he was so engaged with her that he closed his mouth, Mom, right? And once you tapped him on that 95 a few times, he went back on his hip, and then he went into a relaxed state.
That's exactly what you're talking about.
So we have physical control, then we have mental control. And I always stress mental control, okay? That's what's gonna stop or prevent the reactivity from happening. So whenever that happens, don't worry about the obedience aspect of it. Just remote, bump it until you make him retreat and go into a relaxed state, okay? And then you don't have to say anything afterwards. So he just learned, if I do this, I get consequence, and it doesn't stop until I have to give up whatever it is I'm trying to do, okay? Questions about that?
No.
Hi. So we're just going over stay, simple stuff. Did you want to do a quick run through, or are you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Turn up. Tap, tap. Yep. Tap, tap.
Sit, stay. And then it again.
Let's have it now.
Yeah, no, that's going to be a tough one to break for sure.
When I have them, can you put my palms in the air?
Alrighty, so I'll give you a quick review. I teach stay a little bit different than everybody else. So most trainers like it sit, stay, down stay, play stay. So what I do is I only say stay when the dog is already in position. So like when we're in heel, when you come to a stop, Astro automatically sits, but it's not a sit and heel. So if you move again, he would follow you, right? So we're gonna use the heel to learn this. Is when you come to a stop, Astro's gonna automatically sit. You're gonna take your left hand and just wave it like stay. Don't worry if he sees it not, just like stay. And then you're gonna pivot out with your right leg to take him like this. And just wait a moment. Correct. And then back to the side like this. Okay, so it's a real simple movement. Just out with the right leg. Now you're facing Astro, and then back in with the left leg. Now we're beside Astro. Okay? Maybe we can step down. Like we've got this golden coming right now. Good. So you can even try it from here. Good. And then back to the side.
So
Yeah, we're starting very basic.
And I don't command him there, correct? You don't want me to command him there when I face him?
So you would say stay, right? And then back.
Gotcha.
Like, sorry, turn the face. And then back to the side. And then from here you'd go into heel. Okay?
Heel.
Tap, tap forward. You got it. Good job. Good.
Stay.
Good. Up, tap. Good. So if he gets up, you up, tap to sit him or reposition him, and then relax. Good. Back to the side. Good.
Heel. Stay.
Yeah. Nice inspection. Good.
And my parents love watching them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they want to see how he's doing.
Stay.
Very good. So now we're gonna go to the next step.
Okay.
Same process. Stay. Cut in front. Wait a moment, and then you're gonna do a half moon on the front half of Astro.
So kind of like
Walking around, yeah, just the front half of him.
Heel. Stay.
Good.
Heel. Stay. Heel.
And when you said dog?
Stay.
Yeah, it's great with them.
It was
Just a big high energy. Yeah, the small little,
Heel.
good couple more. Smaller dog. I mean, he coexists with. When we go back to Michigan, my parents have like a 13-year-old 6-pound Chihuahua.
Oh, that.
Chihuahua does not like him at all. He wants to bite his head off, but he hasn't had teeth left.
I was gonna say, my 12 is like 8, and he's already, he's losing them. And he's starting to get that funny mouth because we don't have to kind of take him in.
I haven't trained them yet. No? Looks like the rarest dog that you trained or something. It's not necessarily rarest, but
It's like the most infrequent.
yeah.
Cuba.
Okay.
Stay.
They're not very common. I've trained a lot of kids.
Yeah.
Especially when I first started my career. Good. Now what you're gonna do? Same process, but you're gonna do a full circle.
Around him.
Yeah. Okay, now when you come behind him, he might pivot and look at you. If he keeps the butt down, it's okay. We only correct if the butt comes up or if he stands up.
Okay.
Okay?
Heel.
Then when I first started training my business here, I probably got a feet right off the bat. I haven't been. And I had to have
Stay. Heel. Stay. Heel. Stay. Heel.
like right there. He did a couple on it, got a flip one, but he's still. I'm gonna have you do a stay like over here. Because he had a problem. It was great until you hit that corner there.
Yeah. Stay.
See how much that's easier?
Yeah.
So we'll do one more and we'll cap it there.
Heel. Stay.
Good. Heel and pivot. Good pivot. So you're doing really good. And then she gets to the latter half of the street here. Then he has issues. Then you came back, you did it here, no issues. Okay. Because he asked maybe if you're walking too close, and I didn't think you were because all of them you were doing the same. The only thing that changed was there was a skateboard that you noted, and then you're more towards the 6 corners where there's more traffic, right? And this is what I mentioned earlier. If you notice something like that, where he's like, man, he was doing great, and then we hit this one spot, and he's terrible. There's a reason for that I targeted. Okay, and I try to pluck out what is it. Was it the skateboard, or was it, the fact that you're at 6 corners and there's a lot of cars on the back, right? So learn to be sensitive to that stuff. It's not always the dog being disobedient. It's, for him, it most likely comes from some kind of behavioral. Okay. So if you press him there and you get him to hold still, you're teaching him how to hold all that nervous, anxious energy in that particular setting. Okay. So just something to keep in mind. Otherwise, pretty simple stuff.
Okay.
In terms of practicing it, I had told Connor earlier, if you hit like a red light, or if you're at a stop sign, or like after you poop, tap them into like a sitting position, stay, pick it up.
Okay.
Or like when you go to throw it away, stay, throw it away, come back to them. Other than that, unless you have applications yourself for it, that's typically how my clients use it. It's like the least useful command, in my opinion. Once we get to sit down in place, you just say it. It's just a stage spot. Okay. Questions?
No. No, I'm gonna watch the video.
Yeah, no,
out.
it's fine. I gave you the crash course essentially.
Okay.
Okay. But you got almost to where Connor got.
Really, yeah.
Almost everything. Yeah. Questions for me?
You covered everything. I came in with questions. I don't have them anymore. So.
Okay. Cool. So you have your homework. If you feel like you're doing really well with this, you can start transitioning into your long age. So blending the heel, the recall, and the stay. I suggest not doing recall from a stay position, because then you'll create the problem of assuming you're going to call them, and you'll start prematurely running towards you. Okay, and it then screws up the stay. So I personally only release dogs when I'm next to them, or cue them into the next command when I'm next to them. Okay. To make it very clear to him that I will never release you when I'm 20, 30 feet away. Got that? There. See that back away? And the resting. There you go.
Good boy.
Very good. Awesome, guys. Anything else?
Appreciate it.
No worries. If you need anything else, let us know. Otherwise, we'll see you in a week.
Yeah.
Okay, hopefully.
Barring protests.